Screen Blur.
Hello and welcome to Screen Slurps, the movie review podcast where we discuss the good, the bad, and the savage in the world of cinema. I'm Adam Meisner.
And I'm Laura Meisner.
And this week, we have not been on the internet for such a long time.
I couldn't tell if you were laughing at me saying Meisner or what you
I think
were
it's a
gonna say
combination
next.
of
I
things.
honestly, though, had to tell myself, don't say Herlocker.
We have been on hiatus for months now.
A while.
Because our life has just superseded things that have been going on. I've been playing music in a band.
It's just been crazy, honestly. Like, we got married. My sister got married. You have your band stuff. We have work. We have other life stuff. We didn't have time, people. Not enough hours in the day.
I can't throw excuses at the wall right now. It's just...
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
But we're
And
back!
We're here, and we're going to talk about a movie that just came out pretty recently. And I wanted to talk about this because I'm a nerd, and I had to watch the movie. I had to let my nerdism just come up front so I could watch this movie. And I'm glad that I did. The movie this week that we're talking about is Gran Turismo. And I'm excited to talk about this. Laura, have you ever played the video game Gran Turismo?
No. And I was going to say, I feel like Gran Turismo is like the least nerdy of games because it's racing. But maybe that's just... And it's not a game, right? As they say in the movie. It's a simulator.
It's a simulator.
It's not a game. But no, I've never played it. I'm not a big racing game person. Like, I don't think I've played very many racing games other than the arcade game that was at the movie theater growing up. Me and my sister used to race on that every time we went to the movies. But that's it.
You should have gotten into playing
Maybe Mario Kart.
Burnout or something, like where you're racing the car and the cars would explode.
Yeah, no. Never did that. That wasn't my thing.
Nothing brings a tear to my eye.
Mario Kart is probably...
That's a racing game.
But I'm saying that's probably the only really racing game like I played growing up.
I think Gran Turismo is in a different dimension
It's
than
a
Mario Kart.
simulator.
There's Mario Kart where you're all these little cartoon characters, and then there's Gran Turismo where you're the car itself, basically.
You don't get to like pick a driver?
You're not really picking a driver.
Oh, that
you're
would be
picking the
fun
car.
if you could pick a driver. You know, like in FIFA and like the NFL games, Madden and stuff, you can like pick the players. If you could pick your driver and your car, that would be cool.
Not that I'm aware of. I think in Gran Turismo,
It's just
it's
the
not
car.
like F-Zero or something.
But you can like customize the car, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like every little piece of it.
They've gotten a lot better about that as each Gran Turismo game has come out, and they've gone from the first to where they are now.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last Gran Turismo game I played was Gran Turismo 4.
Are they on like
PlayStation
7 or
2.
something? now?
Yeah, I think 7 or 8 now.
Well,
so.
For the makers of Gran Turismo, if you're listening, I think you should add a driver that you can customize.
The most important part of those games for a lot of people is just how cool is your car that you're driving.
Which makes sense. It makes sense.
But that's where we're at this week is the Gran Turismo film. Very excited to talk about that. And we'll get right into it. But before we get into that, we're going to be talking about our side slurps. That's right, our side slurps. If you don't know what our side slurps are the things that we have done other than watching our film of the week. Things like watching other TV shows, maybe other movies, maybe things that aren't even movie related, like playing video games or playing with a yo-yo. Arts and crafts. A yo-yo falls in that category, doesn't it? Do people even use yo-yos anymore?
I mean, there's like yo-yo championships.
Why
is that the song you decide to use for yo-yoing?
It made me think of SpongeBob, like the jellyfish.
Extreme yo-yoing.
Yeah.
That's a thing, though. We shouldn't make fun. It's a thing.
I'll have to go see some crazy yo-yoers.
We'll watch
out
some
there.
YouTube videos.
It's just swinging it around. I feel like I'd get injured from someone
Isn't
doing
like
that.
Cat's Cradle? I think that's one of the tricks you can do.
Oh
with
yeah,
the yo-yo,
yeah, Cat's
where
Cradle,
like,
yeah, where they whip it around and they get
and
it.
it hits a string.
Yeah.
You can't see us, people, but we're reenacting it.
Nunchucking yo-yos. Wow. So Laura, what have you been up to this past week?
I honestly didn't know what to put on my list because we've done so much in the few months since I've done my last side slurps. But I decided to just stay recent. So I'm just going to talk about recent things that I've been doing. So as you all know, I'm a huge reader. I love reading. I love books. I just read Done and Dusted by Layla Sage, however you pronounce it. It's really, really good rom-com, Western rom-com, I'll say, about a woman who like comes back to her small town and falls in love with her brother's best friend. And it was great. Adam actually picked it out for me based on the cover. We were at Barnes & Noble. And I was like, I don't know. I'll read it. But it was so good. Like one of my favorite books of this year, probably.
That sounds like an interesting conversation. Like
read.
She just gets mad at her brother sometime. And she's like, you suck. I don't want to hang out with you, but your friend now.
She started off not liking the friend, right? Like she remembered him being the like bad boy in town and the ladies' man. And he always like annoyed her. And then when she comes back, she's like, oh, he's hot. And he's being really nice. Like this isn't what I remember from growing up. And she, you start to learn like he changed because all this stuff happened. And yada, yada, yada. It's a good book.
Classic romantic novel.
Honestly, yeah. It's got all the tropes of like typical romance novels. So I liked it. It was really good. That was my most recent finish. I'm now currently reading the 9th book in the Outlander series, which is so long. The audiobook is like 50 hours. So I'm doing a combination of like listening to the audiobook while I'm doing other stuff like cleaning or crafting, and then reading the physical book when I can actually sit down and read it. And it's still going to take me forever. I think I'm only like 20% through the book or something. It's wild. Outside of books, in the video game world, Adam will laugh. My current obsession is Honkai Star Rail. As listeners, you'll know, I'm also obsessed with Genshin Impact. This is made by the same company, but it's different. It's very different in like the combat styles and the gameplay. But it's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it. And then the last thing that I thought we should talk about, Adam, is probably both of us, is that we went on our honeymoon recently to the beautiful, beautiful Cancun in Mexico. And we stayed at a very nice resort and we ate a lot of good food.
Yeah, we did.
We sat in jacuzzis. We had a very nice couples massage that was like one of the best things I think we've done together.
Life-changing.
And it was just a really, really good trip. I don't know. Is there anything else that you want to like talk about from our Cancun trip? Those are the big things. We ate, we slept, we drank.
I thought it was interesting, and I'll never forget when we walked down to the beach and there were warning signs about stepping on stingrays.
Yeah,
so.
We didn't go in the ocean. I was like, no thank you. I don't want to get stung by a stingray.
Yeah, it was make sure you wave your feet around to scare the stingrays off, so that was a little interesting. We both were kind of like, let's not go in the ocean. There's also like red flags up, too.
Yeah, it was storming. The water was pretty choppy.
But there was a guy who was windsurfing, I think.
Parasailing? Windsurfing? Whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he was out there.
But it was a very nice trip. And it was Adam's first trip outside of the U.S.
It's true.
So
I'd never been out of the country before.
Now begins our travels. Let's see where else we'll go now that we have passports.
Now we get to explore more.
Woo. So that's all my side slurps that I had on my list, Adam. What about you?
Well, this past week, I've been trying to find a nice balance between learning some new things and also just having fun, just kind of taking it easy. And between that balance, I've been trying to work on a video game for the Screen Slurps website that listeners, you'll be able to check out on our website as soon as it's designed. So don't rush right out to the website just yet. It's not there yet, but I'm working on it. It's getting designed. You'll be able to check it out soon as I put that together. And I'm doing that now. So it's a work in progress, but it is being created. And I hope to have that up on our website shortly. So you'll be able to check that out. And I'll keep some updates going on that. Outside of that I'm working on, or I should say that I have been doing, playing a video game that I have not played until recently, and I beat the game now. The game is the video game Alan Wake, and I know there's a second one that's out now that a lot of people have been talking about this year, but I had to play the first one, and I had to see what this game is all about, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised.
You were into it. You played that whole thing in like 2 days.
It was just a good story, and it was interesting, the kind of twists and turns that game had. It was interesting to see what they were talking about in the game, because at first I thought it was going to be super predictable. I thought the story was going to be something where you just...
Something like Heavy Rain, right? Just like they disappear and you have to find them.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, but in Heavy Rain, they didn't go so far to make it supernatural.
John.
Yeah, I mean,
Is that his name
in
or Jason?
It was both.
Uh-oh.
He had 2 kids.
Look at my memory.
But one of them doesn't get abducted in the beginning.
Right. He's got the 2. Anyway, sidetrack.
That's a different game. Alan Wake, it's like his wife goes into the ocean, and you're led to believe at first that she had drowned, and is she murdered? And they're trying to tell you, well, she drowned in the ocean. I mean, what else could have happened? But Alan Wake, being the novelist that he is like, no, she's not dead. She's been abducted, and she's still there, and I gotta find her somehow. So you're trying to figure out, well, how is she being held in the ocean, or where is she being held? How is this all playing out? And that's where this sci-fi kidnapping spiel comes into play throughout the game, and it's pretty cool.
I couldn't have played that game. I was telling you, when the objects like start shaking and flying at you, that would make me way too nervous, and I would die constantly.
I don't know how you would get so scared from games like that. I really don't get how you... If you need to just play Amnesia: The Dark Descent.
No.
If you think that Alan Wake is too scary for you.
See, well, you made me play Amnesia that one time. I am not good at those games. I'm a happy, cozy simulator gaming kind of girl. Or Genshin Impact / Honkai Star Rail. Like, I can't even do Uncharted, Adam. I'm terrible. I can't aim and shoot a gun. I'm so bad. Assassin's Creed is probably the most intense game I can play, and that's because I can sneak around in bushes and just like stab people. So I can't do anything that involves aiming.
And we'll have to make sure it's on easy difficulty.
No, I didn't play it on easy. Don't do that to me. I played it on regular. Speaking of, I bought the new Assassin's Creed Mirage, and I have not played it at all.
Add that to your game
I've got
list.
You got 6 games I'm currently playing. I cannot also start Assassin's Creed. I'll have to finish something first. The issue is, though, most of the ones I'm playing don't have quote unquote ends. You know, Genshin, Honkai, Disney, Dreamlight Valley.
You just keep going.
They're just open world. You just play, and there's more quests that they bring out all the time. So there's never an end. Oh my gosh. I was telling Adam this morning, actually, when we were at breakfast, I'm going to have to start scheduling it. And Monday, I play Genshin. Tuesday, I play Disney. It's ridiculous. It's bad. I blame it on Adam. I wasn't that much of a gamer before you and I got together.
And now you're just this huge nerd.
Well, I was a nerd before, but now I'm a
Now gamer. You're a video game nerd.
Yeah, now I'm a gamer nerd.
You're a romantic novel and video game nerd.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
Well, outside of the Alan Wake game, separate from the Alan Wake game, I've also been watching the anime series Chainsaw Man. Laura and I watched all of the first season of Chainsaw Man, and I can just straight up say that I would recommend watching Chainsaw Man. It was a great anime series. A little bit on the adult side. I'll put that out there too.
A little bit on the adult side. Maybe a lot of bit.
Make sure you're on an adult when you're watching Chainsaw Man. But
very good though.
Very good. And that's really what I've been up to this past week. And other than the side slurps in the film news territory, I gotta say, I saw online a few different things that have been going on in the film news, what I find very interesting. And I can even compare a couple things here. On one end of the spectrum, let's talk about the new Aquaman film. That has not been doing so good.
Have we seen any of the DC movies, you and I?
Well, that certainly relates. I don't think so.
I don't think we have. So I was going to say, I haven't seen the first Aquaman, so I can't really even have any. I don't think we've watched any. Oh, additional side slurp, right? Adam and I did complete our Marvel binge over this last year while we were not recording episodes. We have watched every single Marvel thing in chronological order. But back to Aquaman.
Well, no, we didn't watch the most recent.
Oh, that's true. The Marvels.
Yeah.
We have to watch that one. But otherwise, we watched all of them. And now we have Loki season 2.
Yeah.
But, anywho. But back to DC and Aquaman. It's not doing good?
No, Aquaman opening weekend, I think it was at $4.5 million at the box office. Oh. And I think now it's got 28 mil or something like that. Yeah, but its budget was 250 mil or something.
I think the world is finally over superhero movies. And we're just seeing that now. Because I mean, I don't know, but I don't think Marvel's did as well either. The Marvels, the new one. I think it's just so oversaturated as an industry, and people are tired of it. I'm tired of it. Maybe just because we binged everything, but
Yeah.
you know, I want more Saltburns. I want more movies like that. I don't want another superhero movie.
I think that's a conversation for another episode. We can,
Yeah.
we'll have
Teaser. Teaser, everyone. There'll be an episode.
Yeah, we'll have to really get into that. But yeah, I don't know. There's just so many superhero films that are out there now. It was something that, you know, gained steam when we were first putting out superhero movies, and I get it, you know,
I mean,
a
it's
superhero movie here, a superhero movie there. When it first started, you know, put out the Spider-Man movies with Sam Raimi, his Spider-Man films, and we have a few more here, a few more there, and then it got to this point we're at now where every single year we got to have 20 different superhero movies.
Yeah. And I think part of the issue too is that it's nothing new. You know what I mean? Like 15 years ago when it started, we had Iron Man, and then you'd have Captain America, and it's like new characters who all have their own stories and like abilities and blah, blah, blah. And now it's just like an amalgamation of everything. And it's just the same old, over and over again. And honestly, other than like a select few, right? Like the Spider-Man movies are so good. That last Tom Holland Spider-Man movie that you and I watched,
where they
Far
brought
From
them all
Home.
together.
That movie was so good. And even the most recent Doctor Strange was like enjoyable. So there's a few in there, but for the most part, it's like the same thing over and over, and you just get tired of it. So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that Aquaman 2 is not doing that great.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it continues to go as we continue to have more superhero movies, more movies where the continuing characters keep being brought back together.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know where this is gonna continue on.
There are some future films I am looking forward to, though. I mean, they're doing a new Blade, which I'm kind of worried because Wesley Snipes is Blade, in my opinion. So we'll see how it is. But I'm looking forward to that one. I'm also looking forward to Deadpool, the new Deadpool movie. So maybe those will break the cycle.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And sort of in relation to that, the news that Marvel has cut their ties with Jonathan Majors. Is anybody surprised by that, really, with what he has done?
Yeah. No surprise. It'll be interesting to see the trajectory that they take, you know, because they were working up to him being like the next baddie, you know?
Right.
Like that, him being the focus. So I saw that people were debating, like, should they just recast and continue with that plot line, or should they like totally switch and just go to a new baddie, quote unquote?
Yeah, I'm curious if they would just recast Kang. I mean, they've set up all this steam already.
That's the
for
thing.
Kang.
They've set it up. He's been in multiple movies, like kind of little cameos here and there, right? I think it might be a little jarring to suddenly like switch to something else.
Yeah, and then just have no Kang at all.
Yeah.
Like, where did Kang go?
Yeah, we'll see what they do.
And then in relation to Aquaman not making any money, think about the movies that have made money. I saw online as well that Christopher Nolan is feeling pretty good since Oppenheimer has now landed $954 million at the box office.
It's still showing in theaters. Isn't that wild? I went to see Waitress in theaters maybe a few weeks ago now, and there was a showing of Oppenheimer. It's been in months. That came out like July, wasn't it? Around 4th of July, that came out in theaters, and it's
months ago.
Still showing. That's wild.
But that brings us into our movie of the week, Gran Turismo, directed by Neil Blomkamp, screenplay by Jason Hall and Zach Balin, based on the life of the teenage video game player Jann Mardenborough.
Jann.
Based on the life of teenage video game player Jann Mardenborough and the Gran Turismo video game. Produced by Doug Belgrad. I'm going to stop myself right now because I'm not going to be able to pronounce all these names.
You tried. Can I say how fun the director's last name is? Blomkamp. Have you seen his other movies?
I don't think I have, honestly.
So I was looking, right, and he did District 9, Elysium, and Chappie. I think, did we watch Chappie?
I don't think we did, but
Is that the one with Hugh Jackman and the robot?
yes, it is. Hugh Jackman. I'm thinking of the other.
There is another robot movie.
Yeah, with Tom Hanks.
Isn't there another like BattleBots-esque one that's also Hugh Jackman?
Not sure about
I don't
that,
know.
But
Anyway.
Deontward's in Chappie too.
Oh, I don't know that. Maybe I haven't seen Chappie. So I don't think I've seen any of Blomkamp's movies. My bad.
Neil Blomkamp directed Gran Turismo. And just to give a quick summary on the plot of Gran Turismo is a 2023 American biographical sports drama.
It's a lot of words.
And yeah, isn't that just...
It's like
you could just leave it
all
right
the
there.
genres.
Just leave it right there.
That's it.
Biographical sports drama. And
Let's put biographical in quotes. I feel like this is very loosely based. Biographical.
Whoa. Biographical sports drama. And it's based on, as mentioned earlier, on the racing simulation video game series, Gran Turismo, telling the true story of Jann Mardenborough, a teenage Gran Turismo player who becomes a professional racing car driver. The film stars Archie Madekwe. Do we know how to pronounce his last name?
Madekwe?
Madekwe?
That would be my guess.
Archie Madekwe, who stars...
We'll get it. We'll figure out how to pronounce it for the next episode because he's in that movie too.
Who stars as Jann Mardenborough alongside David Harbour, Orlando Bloom, Darren Barnett,
and the most important person in this movie, Adam. Do you know who I mean? Jerry Halliwell, the Spice Girl.
Oh. And Jamon Honsau. I see shoulders shrugging.
I didn't write it down, so I don't know what it looks like because I can't help you.
So, yeah, that's essentially our little summary of the film. It's a great little summary, by the way. Not to pat myself on the back there. That's just me saying. It's just...
Let's just start. I want to start, with a conversation about it being a quote-unquote video game movie. I know it is, but I would argue that it's not a video game movie. Not at all. I mean, obviously it's inspired by Gran Turismo. And I did like, as well as kind of talk about when we get to it, in film, especially in the racing bit, you get that kind of visuals and little sound effects of like an actual racing game, right? Like we'd hear the little PlayStation noises and like you'd see the stuff come up on the screen, like the driving lines or whatnot. But if you look at this overall, it didn't feel like a video game movie to me. It felt like a racing movie. Like a sports movie. And I think maybe that's why it's more successful than like other video game movies of the past or something, because it acknowledges what it is. It pays homage to like PlayStation and all these little Sony and all these things. But then it actually turns into this, like, as if it said, a biographical racing sports drama, what have you.
When I think of a video game movie, I think of something like Ready Player One or like Wreck-It Ralph or something, you know, like... like you're looking at video games.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Or you think of ones that are like trying to replicate the plot of a video game. You know, look at Assassin's Creed, like Resident Evil. You know, it's taking the plot of a game and putting it into a movie. And some of those are successful, right? I mean, like, why did I just forget the name? You know, Resident Evils, or, you know, some of those movies are successful. And then you have like Assassin's Creed movie, or that one that's like World of Warcraft or whatever, and or Monster Hunter, right? And they're not great. But this one, I think it's not trying to be that, and that's why it does a little bit better.
Yeah, I think when I was watching this film, in terms of it being a video game movie, I felt like it was like a 50-50 or like a 60-40 or something, where it's kind of like I went into it knowing that Gran Turismo was a video game, and I knew that there was going to be some kind of, or I was hoping that there was going to be some kind of reference to the game itself in some way or in some sense. And I'm glad that when I was watching it that I got that a little bit, because the main character was inspired from playing the video game. So you can see in some of the scenes going in that he's playing the video game. There's some scenes where it's like he's immersed in the video game and he's got this like real life / video game like simulation overlay.
Yeah.
And they also integrate the sound effects from the game with real life in some various scenes where it's real life, but they'll still use a sound effect from either like PlayStation itself, like a PlayStation sound, or the video game sound effect.
I feel like it was more like a history of the video game versus being the game itself, in a way. But I did like the integration of the game into like the real life, as you were just explaining. I thought those were, you know, I'd never played the game, but still, like, I related to the visuals and the sounds that they were doing, and I was like, oh, that's a video game noise. Like, that's not a real life noise.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I didn't think it like was overlapping over like the realism
Wasn't
too
too
much.
cheesy. Yeah, like too campy.
Yeah, it wasn't like, oh, this is so video gamey. It's like way too much of like a video game. It was just enough where you're like, oh, I can see how this is like the video game. And then you've got the realism elements, like the rest of the movie. It was still like most all of the movie is real life, and then you've got those little hints of like, here's how they integrate the video game elements to. It's how you connect with the character, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. As we're starting to get in now to the plot, can I just say, I don't know if you felt this way, Adam. I felt like the first third of the film was so slow. It was kind of not like, I felt like I wasn't really engaged until he was like at the academy, essentially, and kind of doing the last race. And I understand why they needed to have the beginning to kind of set up Jann's character and what his life was like, but I feel like they could have condensed it a lot and kind of gotten to more of the meatier bits. Or they could have just developed other characters a little more. You know, like I wanted more with his family. So as I'm saying this, I can kind of start talking about the beginning of the movie, right? Like we have Jann, who's this teenager who's obsessed with playing Gran Turismo. And his dad is very much like, this is nothing. You won't get anywhere in life playing this game. Like, you need a real job or a real interest, yada, yada, yada. And it's just like, I wanted more with his dad, I guess. I don't know. Or just his brother's like some random side character. Even his love interest, she's kind of just like thrown in at a party and then we never see her again until later in the movie. Like, I don't know. It just felt like half developed to me in the beginning. Or if they were going to keep it as undeveloped as they did, they should have condensed it down.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure with the beginning because it's kind of like you've got these back and forth elements of we see his character and his love of video games, and then we're learning about his, as you mentioned, his family and his, you know, his friends, his social interests and things like that. But all of it really just circles around learning about his love of like how he wants to be a race car driver, and it circles around him playing Gran Turismo essentially. And all we learn from that is
he's really good at Gran Turismo.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just
like all we get out of it.
He likes playing Gran Turismo, and what we get from his conversations at dinner with his parents is basically his dad being like, well, you should, you know, play more soccer, basically.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, Dad, I'm going to be a race car driver, and he's not having that. So then when it comes to him going to a party with his family or like with his brother and him trying to hook up with a girl, it's like, okay, well, he's not much of a instinctual socialist. He's not good at hooking up with women, and his brother just wants to get drunk and fail at driving a car. So what's he going to do? Well, we learn from that like he can try and save his brother from getting arrested. So
we learn he's a good driver in real life too, right? Because he has a scene where they like escape the police.
Yeah.
So that's giving us he's not just good in the game.
Yeah, it's not just video game driving. He can drive in real life.
His skills in the game come into real life, and he can apply what he's done in the game to real life situations, and he's a good driver. Like, so I get it, but it's just, I don't know, it felt too long and not enough for me. for the first, honestly, like third of the movie, for being real. So during that first third, though, while we're learning about Jann, we're also learning about the other kind of two characters of the movie who are played by Orlando Bloom and David Harbour. So we see Danny Moore, which is Orlando Bloom's character, and he's like an executive at, he doesn't say Nissan, right? He says Nissan. He pronounces it weird, and I'm like, is that how the British pronounce it and we pronounce it wrong? Because we say Nissan.
Yeah.
I think he was saying Nissan. Is that the right way to say it? What if we're wrong, Adam?
I'm not sure if it's like Nissan or...
I think he said Nissan because we say Nissan.
That's so strange.
It was really jarring to me. But anyway, Danny Moore, who goes to the other Nissan executives, and he's like, hey, I want to do this thing. There's this untapped market of kids who play Gran Turismo, and they could be buyers of our cars. So we need to get them to buy real cars. And to do that, we're going to make them race car drivers.
It doesn't get better than that. You know, no one gets inspired to buy a car more than when they're racing with it.
Yeah. And can I tell you, when he goes to the board meeting to like pitch this idea, right? And then he leaves and instantly the woman, they like walk out and they're like, the board agreed. Like, we're going to fund this.
Okay.
No way in life would it be that easy.
That did have me cracking up.
Like, they didn't question anything. They didn't question like the safety around this, the funding, like anything. There's no back and forth. All of the board was just like, this sounds good.
I mean,
let's do it.
There's not even going to be a shot of them like sitting there looking at one another like, maybe we should talk about this, or...
Yeah, or have him go away and like, he's like anxiously like, oh, are they going to approve it or not? And then he gets a phone call.
They don't need that. There's just him walk out and then instantaneously. Let's
take forever in the bit of establishing Jann's character, but for this, we're going to just go ahead and do it. Ugh.
It's a yes.
It's a yes. So once he gets this yes, he's got to find, though, then someone to teach them how to drive.
So in doing that, of course, Orlando Bloom, who are you going to hire quicker than David Harbour?
I mean, you were going to say, who are you going to call?
I mean, well, the Ghostbusters aren't going to teach him how to drive, so.
But David Harbour's character was like his last option. He called lots of other people, and they all were like, no, this is crazy and super unsafe. I'm not going to do this.
Well... And David Harbour didn't even really want to do it.
No. What was his character's name again? It was...
Jack Salter.
Oh, Saltaire, as Orlando Bloom would say it.
Oh, yes.
Him and his accent.
I've got to get my accent going here.
Saltaire.
Excuse me. Jack Saltaire.
So Jack is the last option on the list. And at first he says no, because he also is like, no, this is crazy.
Yes, but then he's got to put up with his current driver that he's working with.
Kappa.
Yeah, Nicholas Kappa.
And he's like, this dude's a prick. I'm done.
Pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah, I don't know how anyone could have put up with that driver. That driver.
What an asshole.
And that entire film was nothing but just jerky.
Yeah. I'm sure that was inspired by like actual drivers that Jann interacted with, you know, in his day during his driving and during this whole thing.
Yeah. Are all of the race car drivers that you have to drive next to just total jerkwads? Like... I hope not.
I don't really pay attention to like Formula One driving, so I couldn't even tell you. I don't know.
Yeah, I hope it's not.
My parents watched NASCAR. We were NASCAR family, not an F1 family.
But yeah, that character was definitely not nice, and so Jack Saltaire, he chose to get on the GT Academy team and train the incoming racers. But
so now as we're talking about that, how they decided who could actually come to the academy, did they just look at like the highest scores or the quickest times for different racers like around the world and picked the top 20 or something and it said like, you're the top racers in the world, join this race, and if you're in the top 10 you get to come to the academy? Like, is that the way that they did it in real life?
That I'm not entirely sure of, unfortunately enough.
I mean, that's how it seemed it went in the movie, right? And I would assume it's based on real life, so probably similar. I don't know. It just seemed so out of nowhere. Like, they didn't give anyone any notice. You know what I mean? Like he just randomly at an arcade shop, not even at his personal computer at home.
No, he goes into the arcade and then his friend is like, Jann, look.
You're eligible. Like, what if he didn't happen to be there that day and no one told him about it and he missed the race? Because the race was the next day.
Right. I know. It was just his friend telling him, like, Jann, look.
And he almost didn't make the race because his dad was like, tisk.
Yeah.
Come work with my job, you worthless bum.
Yeah, see what it's like to work a real job, because this is what you're going to be doing.
And then Jann's like, no, Dad, I'm going to be a racer.
Yeah.
And he goes to his race. And lo and behold, he qualifies.
Actually makes it in, yeah.
Woo!
He qualifies, and then he has to go to the GT Academy with 9 other racers.
Academy. So yeah, we're at the Academy now, right? And they make them do... It's like actual training. You know, it is legitimate. They make them like work out and do endurance training because being in a car is intense. They were talking about like the G-force on your body and just like the exertion of driving in the car, which you don't experience when you're playing Gran Turismo, right? Like you don't get the physical bit of it. You may know how to drive from the game, but you don't know like what it does to your body actually. So they have to do a lot of endurance and like practice and testing in these cars. And they slowly just start like kicking people out of the academy because they're like, you suck. Get out.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I can only imagine the endurance and the stamina and just the mentality you would have to have for driving a race car at, you know, over 300 miles per hour, and just the focus you'd have to have driving a car like that for numerous laps.
Yeah.
Without running into a wall or something.
Yeah. And while we're at the academy, Jann struggles a little, right? Like he's not like an outright front runner. He's kind of like near the bottom of the list for quite a while. He struggles a little bit, but he makes his way through. He edges his way through.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that he does, right, is he impresses Salter's character, because they're doing a test run. They're like driving around and he actually gets in an accident. So he wrecks like with Salter in the car with him. And Jack is yelling at him, you know, like, you need to anticipate, like you can't be afraid, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I did brake, like the brakes were glazed or whatever that means. Yeah. The brakes are glazed. And Jack's like, how do you know that? And he's like, I know from the game, from the simulator, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, he's like, those brakes were broken or whatever. And then, when they checked the brakes afterwards, he had a mechanic look at the car and he's like, oh, yeah, I fixed the brakes.
So Harbor's like, oh, not Harbor, sorry, Jack Salter. It's like, oh, this kid knows what he's talking about. You're in!
Yeah. Yeah, and so then Jann goes through a series of qualifying races as he's in the GT Academy. Now he has to go through actual races.
Right, like once he wins the Academy.
Yeah.
Then he gets to go to the real thing.
Yeah.
But he has to do these races, right? Because he has to finish in like the top 3 or 4 to qualify for his actual like license.
Right. He has to land 4th place at least to qualify.
It's just wild that they let someone drive who doesn't have their like license. Yeah. Yes.
Well, to sign with Nissan, essentially, to get like a license with Nissan, that's what it was. It was like to contract with Nissan.
Yeah, and get his like quote unquote professional license.
Yeah. So he's going through these qualifying races, and he's going through multiple races, and each one different from the last. You know, he lands in maybe 6th or 7th place on one. And
I think the first one he was last.
Yeah.
Like very last.
The first one he was last. But yeah.
And then he gets a little better. A little better.
And then he gets a little better. He gets a little better. He lands in 13th place or something on like the next one. And he does another one. And finally on the last race, he's got to land in 4th place or higher to finally sign with Nissan.
And he does.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. But he makes it. He finishes in 4th place. I wonder if that's what happened in real life with Jann too. You know, because as I said in the beginning, this is very loosely based. Like some of it is very true to Jann's life, some of it is not. A lot of the timeline was like shuffled around and things didn't happen in the order that they did and blah blah blah. So I wonder if for Jann in real life it did take him, you know, till the 4th race to like get his license.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about that. Again, I was hoping that this would be as close to the real thing as possible, but
and I don't think it was. I don't think
the more I've read about this movie online, it's kind of like, oh, shoulder shrug. Who knows?
Yeah. While we're here, can we talk about the cinematography and like the visuals for the car races themselves? Because I actually thought that was one of the like good things of this movie. It was the race themselves, the way that they filmed them, the like excitement of them. I thought it was done really, really well.
Yeah, I thought that the way that the races looked was fantastic. And I thought that the integration of the sound design for the races was just fantastic as well, to be able to hear the car shifting, the sounds of the cars around the racetracks, and again, with the occasional integration of the video game sound effects with those racing scenes, because they didn't overdo it by any means at all. You really didn't hear the video game sounds too frequently at all. It was very minute, I think, but it's just that little added flavor that I enjoyed when you'd hear the little PlayStation noise, you know, once in a rare while, or just the little things like that.
Little visual cues.
I just thought were just really cool little additions for the movie. And even, like you say, visual cues, just kind of things that were a little video game-esque to the movie graphically. I thought it was like, wow, that's really nice integration to this, where it doesn't completely omit you from the movie and it doesn't take away a believability factor. It's just a nice little decoration to kind of tell you what's going on in the scene, or like, you know, what lap is it? Like it tells you which lap you're in, kind of like a video game would, but then brings you right back into the movie.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree completely. I think it was done so well in that regard. So after that, he got his license. He goes to Tokyo, sign contract, and he's a real live racer.
Not a computer generated.
He's a real boy.
Yeah. So Jann's first race after signing is when the climactic change in this movie really happens, when he has an accident mid-race, flying upward into the audience. And we find out he killed a spectator.
And this is something that happened in real life to Jann. That is a true thing. And at that race, in that turn, it was a freak accident. Just like the weather and everything fell into place in a way that the front of his car like lifted up on a hill, like a downward hill, and he just flew into spectators and injured quite a few. And as Adam said, one unfortunately did pass away from the wreck itself. And it is like the turning point in the movie, right? Because at first you see his parents like watching the race at home and how his mom reacts, like not knowing if he's alive or not. And then you see him like airlifted out of there. And then he learns in the hospital that he did kill someone. And you can just tell like it puts a block on him, right? Like he's afraid to drive after that. He doesn't want to, he feels guilty for what he did. It's a big shift in the movie for sure.
Yeah. And as he goes back to being a race car driver, he's not sure if he even wants to continue racing at all. He's having this discussion with Jack Saltaire about the whole thing, and what inevitably happens is Jack ends up taking him around to where the accident had happened and has this serious discussion with him about how when Jack was younger, he had a similar incident take place where Jack ended up in this freak accident where
died.
Yeah, Jack ended up in this accident with another driver. Another driver ended up dying, and Jack stopped racing for the rest of his life. So,
and essentially Jack was saying like, don't do what I did. Like you have to get back in the car. You got to keep going. And he does.
Yeah, he ends up getting back in his car. He ends up racing still.
Well, and that's when he decides like, let's do Le Mans, whatever it's called, the 24-hour drive. Like, I'm back. I'm gonna do it. Let's be immortal.
Yeah, the 24-hour Le Mans race.
Le Mans. Can you imagine being in a car for 24 hours? I know it's not the one person. It's a 3-person team and they do shifts. But still, that's a long time to be racing.
That is a very long time to be racing.
Such a long time. As we're at this point, too, I want to bring up, like, this. We've kind of said throughout this episode, right, that it's very loosely based. A lot of the timeline is messed up. This part of the movie is something that a lot of critics don't like. And the fact that they used the wreck at Nuremberg or whatever it's called, the wreck where he killed a spectator, they use that as kind of his like turning point, and then coming out of that, his like desire and need to drive at Le Mans, when actually in real life the wreck happened like years later, you know, it way down the line. Like he drove in Le Mans way before the accident happened, and a lot of critics feel like they're using the death of someone from real life as like a gimmick in the movie, you know, to like get this emotional response out of people. And I see that point. I don't agree that it's like the timeline is so messed up and they kind of changed a lot of things. I don't know. I feel like if you're going to do a story about a real person, like keep it real. You know what I mean? You can't change things for your own benefit. You got to show how it was.
Yeah. And it really is kind of a twist to be showing things this way for just to increase the climactic potential, I'll say, of the movie.
And the emotional, like, turmoil.
Right.
You know, it's, I don't know. It feels kind of icky.
I guess from the, you know, the screenwriting perspective or the director's point of view, they're sitting there thinking, well, what other emotional twists can I put in there?
Well, yeah, they need something, you know. Yeah. But
even still, you're trying to make a biographical film, and then they're sitting there thinking like, okay, well, what happened in our person's life that's really going to up the ante emotionally for our audience? And then from their perspective, the person that you're writing about, how do they feel watching the movie? Like, okay, well, you really turned my life around.
Yeah.
Here.
I mean, the real life Jann was part of the movie though, so he must not have cared that they changed stuff around.
Yeah, I mean,
he was the stunt driver.
Yeah.
Like for Archie, he was the actual stunt driver for those scenes, so he was very much involved. So he must not have been opposed to it.
Yeah. I mean, was he just talking to Neil Blomkamp? He's like, hey, go for it.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Loosely based.
Yep. Just go for it.
And that brings us then to really the end of the film, right? Which is the Le Mans race, this 24-hour race. And Danny, Orlando Bloom's character, his big thing is like, so after the wreck, a lot of the other drivers are like, no sim drivers. Like, we can't have sim drivers in real life because look what happens. And so Danny Moore is like, let's have a team of all sim drivers and let's prove them wrong. So they have Jann, and then the two other people that join the team are like other sim drivers, right? And one was from the academy with him. Was a third one also at the academy?
I think so.
I think so. They were all sim drivers.
Like Maddie was the guy, and then
no, it was all guys in the last race. The woman wasn't there. She was like watching, but the actual race, the team were 3 guys.
Oh.
But anywho, they're all sim drivers so that they can compete and like prove them wrong, you know, prove the world wrong that sim drivers can actually be successful. And they race, and there's rain, and it's 24 hours. And Jann has a mental block because he sees a wreck of another driver, and he like starts to remember his own wreck, and he starts to panic.
And he starts to slow down, and he can't handle the situation, and everyone's worried that he's just going to fail in the race and just stop racing and not continue onward. And so what better way to keep him in the groove of racing than have Jack Saltaire get on the comm system and start playing Songbird by Kenny G.
Kenny G solves everyone's problems.
The song Orinoco Flow.
By Enya, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, Kenny G, he solves all my problems. You put a little Kenny G on, I can do anything. We love Kenny G in this house.
But it gets him going. It gets Jann going.
Him back in the game.
Yeah, he starts revving those engines, and he's flying around, and he's getting somewhere, and he starts to hit another block. Not mentally this time, but a literal one on the racetrack.
Oh yeah, there's a wreck.
He's trying to figure things out as he's driving, and now he starts using another system in his brain of the video game flow that he has.
Well, right, because in the game, right, it shows you like the best path. There's like a line on the track that shows you kind of the most optimal path to like race this track. And he learned while playing that sometimes if you go off that, you actually do better. And so he's like, Jack, I'm going to go off the path. I'm going to do it how I think I should do it. And they're like, go for it.
Do what you think is right.
And he finishes 3rd. Woo! He's on the podium.
Yeah, and that's really where it
And
takes
that's
it. And I mean, in the credits, then after you finish the movie, it's like, is this going anywhere else? And you see in the credits, like, oh, it's based on
Jann.
a real Jann.
Real Jann.
There's a real Jann out there, which surprisingly enough, Jann has gone through over 200 real races, and
Yeah.
he
And
was
he really did.
he was
come
really
from the
inspired from
Academy.
playing the Gran Turismo video game. Yeah, whether as much of this movie that you want to believe or not, it really is based on a lot of true events. So
Loosely.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, my tea.
It's not like we're saying that, like, believe what you want, but for the most part, this, like, and Jann himself was in the movie as a stunt double, as Laura had mentioned earlier. So yeah, I mean, it's real. I mean, before we start saying our opinions of it, maybe we should talk about other reviews of this movie. Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes had given this movie currently 65% critic score and a 98% audience score.
Again, it doesn't surprise me that, I feel like this happens a lot in these kind of movies that are just like excitement and rah-rah-ree. Like, critics are like, it's all right. And then the audience is like, no, this is exactly what I wanted. And I get why the audience score is so high. Like, the racing is good. Like, it's exciting to watch. If you're a Gran Turismo fan, you're obviously going to watch this movie. Or even if you're just like a Formula One fan, a racing fan, you're going to watch this and you're going to enjoy it because it is like an underdog story and the racing in it's good. So I get why the audience is so high and the critics is not.
Yeah, and I mean, I can see many film critics, I can see them going into the movie theaters and being like, what am I really watching? What is the real, development of the characters?
Well, and honestly, a lot of them were critiquing the timeline and how it is not true. Like, there was a lot of finagling to make it more emotional. And what I was reading, at least, was that a lot of critics did feel that, like, the playing around with the timeline and events was really hindrance to the film.
Yeah, but Orlando Bloom's character, Danny Moore, is inspired by a real person, Darren Cox, and Jann's character is a real person. I don't think that
Saltaire's character wasn't a real person. It was kind of inspired by like multiple people.
Yeah,
they're saying, but he's not really a real person.
So I mean, yeah,
even Roger Ebert, like, they gave it a 2.5. So I get it. I get the critics rating and I get the audience rating.
But that's I think that's all I've really got now for this.
So I mean, then should we just go into our final, right? Like, slurps up and slurps down?
Yeah, I'm ready for it, Laura. With that being said, that brings us into our slurps up or slurps down section. Slurps up meaning we recommend it, we think you should check it out, and it's good. Or slurps down meaning we don't think you should watch it, we think it belongs in the garbage disposal, and turn your television off. So, Laura, slurps up or slurps down?
Can I be a slurps sideways on this one? I think if you are a fan of this genre, if you like racing movies, sports movies, underdog kind of movies, this is your thing, I think you will enjoy it. I don't think you're going to learn a lot. It's not like an emotional roller coaster, but I think for the pure enjoyment of watching it and the racing, you will like it. I think, though, if it's not your thing, like racing's just not your thing, this isn't the movie for you. You're not going to get anything out of it. I mean, I'm glad I watched it. I don't ever need to watch it again. It's kind of where I'm at. So it's hard for me to say if I would recommend this or not, because I think it depends so much on the person. Like, I texted my dad after watching and said, Dad, you should watch this movie. You would like it. But I would not text, my sister or my friend and say, oh, I think you should watch this, because I know it wouldn't be for them. So it's like, I'm a slurp sideways.
Aren't many movies like that, though?
I don't know. I feel like a lot of times I'm very decided on whether it's a yes or a no. Like, I'm like, yes, everyone should watch this. I don't care. And this one, I'm like, nah. If it's not your thing, don't waste your time.
So then you'd say no.
I guess a no. I guess I'm a no. What about you, Adam?
For me, I think I'd still give it a yes, because I think for the movie, in terms of a technical perspective, I think it was well done. I think that the visuals and the sound and everything of this movie were well done. I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed listening to it. I think that it does have its downsides here and there. But
they don't outweigh the good of it, you think?
I don't think so. No. I mean, I think I had curiosity going into this movie in terms of it being a biographical film, and the fact that it's a biographical film that ties into the video game Gran Turismo, I think for me was just, that's where me personally, I'm like, this is interesting that someone was influenced to be a race car driver from a video game, and then from a technical standpoint to be able to hear such great sound effects and see the visuals the way they were. I think they were good. I think it was good, and I thought that the performances from the actors and things like that, I thought it was very nicely done in the movie. So I think in terms of watching this movie, I think it's worth a roundabout, at least checking it out.
One of the few times we disagree.
Do I think it needs to live in your streaming queue?
Is it going to be
Perhaps
a Criterion
not.
collection?
I don't know about that, but would I recommend viewing it? Yes. So I would say check it out. I would say it's a slurps up for me.
Nice.
Yeah. And that wraps it up for this episode of Screen Slurps. Be sure to follow us on social media at Screen Slurps on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And be sure to listen to us on Spotify, Ghana, or any other podcast streaming service out there. And if you enjoy what you hear, slide on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating. It will help us a lot. And if there's any crazy movies that you want to hear about, let us know. Leave a comment on one of our social media pages, and trust me when I say we'll be sure to talk about it. So closing out, I'm Adam Meisner.
And I'm Laura Meisner.
Slurps up, and we will catch you later.